The room was silent, too silent for a medical chamber. Cold white light washed over smooth metal walls, and the air carried a sharp chemical smell. Machines hummed softly, their green lights blinking like tiny nervous eyes. At the center of the room stood a large glass pod, filled with glowing blue liquid. Inside that pod, something was moving, slowly, steadily, against every rule of alien science. Around the pod stood 3 alien doctors, their tall frames bent close, their silver skin catching the cold light, their long fingers pressed against control panels, their eyes fixed on the shape inside. One of them, the lead doctor, leaned forward and froze. His voice broke the silence, trembling with horror. "It shouldn't be growing," he whispered, his words heavy with fear. Inside the pod floated a small human embryo, its form clear against the glow. Only hours ago it had been a simple collection of cells, taken from Earth as part of an experiment. But now it was changing, expanding, dividing, racing through stages that should take months. Its tiny arms twitched, its chest moved as if learning to breathe. The growth was unnatural, impossible, yet it was happening before their eyes. The second doctor turned away, his face pale. "This is wrong," he muttered. "No species grows like this. Not even our strongest war beasts." The third doctor, younger and curious, did not move back. He stared into the pod, watching the embryo's heartbeat flash like a pulse of light. Every beat sent a ripple through the liquid, as if the small body carried a power too great for the chamber. The lead doctor pressed a series of commands into the console. Scanners shot beams of light across the pod, gathering data. Numbers filled the screens, rising too fast, red alerts flashing. He shook his head. "The cells are adapting, resisting every limit we know," he said, his voice sharper now. "They grow stronger when stressed, faster when injured. This is not normal biology." The embryo twitched again, and the lights in the room flickered for a second. The younger doctor stepped back, finally afraid. "Did you see that?" he whispered. "It is affecting the ship." The lead doctor's mouth tightened. "No," he replied, though his own hands shook. "It cannot control machines. It is only—" A child, but deep down none of them believed his words. Something about the small form inside that glass container carried a presence. It felt alive in a way no experiment had before. It was not just surviving, it was pushing back, reshaping its prison with every beat of its heart. The second doctor moved to a nearby panel. "We should end this now," he said, his fingers hovering over the termination switch. "If we allow it to live, we may face something far beyond our control." The younger doctor hesitated, torn between duty and awe. "But if we destroy it, we may lose the greatest discovery in our history," he argued. "Look at it, it is rewriting every rule of life we know." The room filled with tension, the hum of machines louder than before. The embryo stretched again, small fingers pressing against the glass. Tiny bubbles rose around its hand, glowing with strange light. The alien doctors watched in silence, their fear mixing with wonder. Every instinct told them to run, but their curiosity rooted them in place. Suddenly, the embryo's eyes opened. Not fully, just a faint parting of lids, but enough. 2 small eyes glowed faintly in the blue light, staring out at the figures beyond the glass. The younger doctor gasped, stumbling backward. "It sees us," he whispered, his voice cracking. The lead doctor pressed more commands, desperate for answers. "This cannot be real," he muttered. "Embryos do not open eyes this early. This is against all science." The screens flashed again. Faster and faster, heartbeat rising. Cell division unstable, energy output unknown. The machine gave one final shrill alarm before shutting down. Unable to measure anymore, the room went dark for a second, only the pod glowing in the shadows. When the lights returned, the embryo's hand was pressed firmly against the glass. It looked small, weak, fragile, yet the glass shook as if under pressure. The alien doctors backed away, fear in their wide eyes. The lead doctor whispered again, repeating his earlier words almost like a prayer. It shouldn't be growing, but it was growing. Faster, stronger, and it was only the beginning. The council chamber was vast, filled with tall pillars that stretched toward a ceiling of shifting light. Around a long black table sat 12 alien leaders, each with eyes sharp and voices cold. They had gathered because of one thing, the human embryo that was not obeying the rules of nature. The doctors stood before them, heads lowered, carrying data pads that flickered with warnings. The lead doctor spoke first, his voice heavy and tired. "The growth continues. Faster than any known creature, he said. It heals, it adapts, it bends our science into something unrecognizable. Whispers spread across the chamber. Filled with unease, one elder slammed his hand on the table, his skin glowing faintly with anger. This is a threat, he declared. Destroy it before it becomes more. But another voice rose from the shadows, calm and sharp. If we destroy it, we lose the greatest key in the galaxy, said the second elder. This is not just survival, it is evolution in its purest form. We must understand it. The room fell into silence, torn between fear and curiosity. Every leader knew the truth. Humans were already difficult to control. Their wars had shown resilience. Their minds had created weapons beyond expectation. Now their very biology was proving to be something even more dangerous. The youngest counselor leaned forward, his eyes wide with hidden fear. I have studied the old records, he whispered. Do you remember the siege of Othelia? Do you remember the human soldiers who fought without rest, who bled and kept moving when any other species would have fallen? This embryo proves that was no accident. The room grew cold at his words. Memories of battlefields returning like ghosts. Humans fragile in body, yet refusing to die, refusing to yield. They were not the strongest, not the smartest, not the fastest. But they were the ones who endured, and endurance was more dangerous than raw strength. The lead doctor raised his pad, showing streams of numbers. Every attempt to slow its growth failed, he said. Our medicines become fuel. Our poisons become strength. Even radiation feeds it. A wave of shock passed through the council. This is not just a child, another elder whispered. This is a message, a warning from nature itself. The debate grew louder, voices clashing like storms. End it now, before it learns to walk, shouted one. No, keep it alive. We must learn its secret, argued another. The words bounced across the chamber, but no unity came. Fear sat heavy in the room, pressing on every heart, because deep down, they all felt the same truth. If one human child could defy their science, then an entire species might one day surpass them all. The youngest doctor, the curious one from the lab, finally spoke. Perhaps we are asking the wrong question, he said softly. Not whether we should destroy it, but whether we can. The council turned toward him. Their eyes narrowing, he continued. The pod already resists our controls. Its body bends energy fields. It grows even when cut from supply. It should not be alive, yet it thrives. Perhaps even our weapons cannot stop it. Silence struck the chamber. Heavier than before, the idea was terrifying. An enemy that could not be destroyed. An enemy that grew stronger from every wound. An enemy that learned faster than its captors. One elder finally whispered the thought that haunted them all. Perhaps humanity is not prey. Perhaps they are the hunters. The council broke into chaos, some demanding war, others demanding retreat, their voices filled with desperation, as if they were already losing, but above the noise. The lead doctor's words cut through like a blade. We may not have a choice, he said, his eyes dark. This child is growing still, and soon it will awaken fully. The youngest counselor leaned back in his chair, his voice low. If one human child can frighten the strongest empire in the stars, what happens when the rest of their kind learns the truth? The question hung in the chamber like poison. No one answered because no one could. At that moment, far away in the medical lab, the human embryo twitched again, its tiny hands pressed harder against the glass. A ripple of light spread across the pod, and the machine sparked with failure. The guards watching outside stepped back, unease crawling into their bones. The child was not asleep anymore, it was listening, and in its silence it seemed to understand. The aliens feared it, and because they feared, it was already winning. The medical chamber was darker now, its walls humming with hidden power. The pod stood in the center like a sacred relic, glowing with a blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the child's heart. Machines surrounded it, wires snaking across the floor like veins, all feeding data to screens that blinked with confusion. 3 alien scientists remained inside, their faces pale, their hands trembling as they prepared new tests. The lead doctor's voice was cold, steady only because of discipline. We will not destroy it yet, he said, his long fingers tapping the console. We will study it, measure every change, every reaction, until we understand what makes it grow like this. His words echoed through the chamber, but his eyes betrayed his fear. Even he knew this was no ordinary experiment, it was a step into something unknown. The younger doctor adjusted the scanners, beams of red light crossing the pod like searching eyes. Numbers poured across the screens, rising too fast. The child's cells split at impossible speed, each one stronger than the last. Proteins twisted in patterns no alien program could decode. "What is this?" the younger doctor whispered. "It is rewriting itself while we watch." The second doctor frowned, his voice low. "It is not just growing, it is adapting," he said. "Our attempts to limit it only make it stronger." He pointed to the display where toxin levels were dropping. The embryo was consuming poison as if it were food. Radiation readings climbed. But instead of damage, the cells shone brighter. Every danger became nourishment, every threat became fuel. The lead doctor ordered another test, his voice shaking now. "Increase the heat," he commanded. A wave of energy surged through the chamber, raising the temperature beyond survival for most life forms. The liquid in the pod bubbled, steam rising. Alarms flashing red, but inside the child stretched calmly, its body glowing brighter than before. It was not burning, it was thriving. The younger doctor stumbled back, his chest tight. "This is not science," he whispered. "This is something else. Something beyond us," but the lead doctor ignored him, typing faster, demanding answers from machines that could not explain. His eyes burned with a mix of fear and obsession. "If we can unlock this, we will hold the greatest weapon in the galaxy," he muttered. But deep in his voice, even he did not believe in control anymore. The embryo moved again and the pod vibrated under the pressure. Its small hand pressed harder against the glass. Leaving glowing marks, the scientists leaned closer. Caught between terror and awe, the heartbeat echoed louder now, filling the chamber like a drum. Each beat sent ripples across the liquid, each ripple shaking the machines. It was as if the ship itself felt the pulse of this growing life. Suddenly, one of the monitors went dark. Then another, one by one, the systems failed. Lights blinking out until only the pod glowed in the center. The younger doctor gasped. "It is draining us," he whispered. "The child is feeding on the ship's power." The lead doctor cursed, slamming his hand against the console. "Impossible," he hissed. But the fear in his eyes betrayed him. The second doctor reached for the emergency lever, his hands trembling. "We must end it now. Before it breaks free," he cried. But before he could pull, the pod flashed, a burst of light blinding them for a moment. When their vision cleared, the child's eyes were open again. They glowed faintly in the liquid, watching, calm, unafraid. It was no longer just an embryo, it was aware. The younger doctor fell silent, unable to breathe. The lead doctor stared into those small glowing eyes and felt something he had never felt before. It was not hatred, not even hunger. It was recognition. The child knew them, it understood it was being tested, and in its silence it promised something far more terrifying than violence. It promised survival. The chamber shook again, the ship groaning as if under weight. The pod's glass cracked faintly, a thin line spreading across its surface. The scientists froze, staring at the fracture. "Not yet?" the lead doctor whispered desperately. "It cannot be ready yet." But deep inside, he knew the truth. It was growing too fast, too strong, and no lock, no machine. No science would hold it much longer. The pod pulsed one last time, filling the room with a blinding blue light. The scientists shielded their eyes, their bodies trembling. When the glow faded, the crack was larger. Spreading like a web across the glass, the child inside pressed its hand against the break. Its eyes locked on the terrified faces outside. The silence was broken only by the lead doctor's trembling voice. "It should not be growing," he whispered again, but the truth stood before them. Undeniable, unstoppable, it was growing, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The crack in the glass spread wider, tiny lines crawling like veins across the pod's surface. The chamber was silent except for the steady hum of failing machines, their lights flickering as if afraid. The three alien scientists stood frozen, unable to look away from the figure inside. The child was no longer curled as a helpless form, it was moving with purpose, stretching its limbs as if testing its own strength. The lead doctor whispered, his voice weak. "This is too soon. It should not be awake. Not at this stage." But the glowing eyes inside opened wider, clear and sharp. They were small, yes, but there was intelligence behind them, an awareness that no embryo should carry. The child blinked once, and the lights in the room dimmed as if obeying the motion. The younger doctor stumbled backward, his heart racing. "It sees us," he gasped, his voice cracking under fear. The second doctor shook his head, but his trembling hands betrayed him. "No, it cannot see, not yet," he muttered. Though deep inside he knew the truth. The pod trembled again, the glass vibrating under the pressure of small but determined hands. A soft thump echoed, the sound of a palm pressing harder against the crack. The lead doctor's control panel screamed with alarms. Vital signs spiking, energy levels impossible to track. Every line of data showed the same thing. The child was crossing boundaries no life had crossed before. It was no longer adapting to its prison. It was preparing to leave it, the scientists argued. Voices breaking the silence. "Seal the chamber." "Lock it down," cried the second doctor. "No," shouted the youngest, "we must watch." "This is history happening before us." The lead doctor said nothing, his eyes fixed on the glowing figure. He felt both terror and fascination, a war within his mind. The pod cracked louder, a sharp sound that made all three flinch. The liquid inside bubbled, glowing brighter with every second. The child raised its hand again, pressing against the same spot. The crack spread like lightning across the surface. The younger doctor whispered in awe. "It wants out." The lead doctor snapped his head toward him. "No, it cannot leave if it leaves this chamber. The ship itself may be in danger." But even as he spoke, the pod shuddered violently. The machines sparked, one by one shutting down completely. Darkness spread across the chamber, leaving only the eerie glow of the pod to light the room. In the silence, the child's chest moved in steady rhythm. The first true breath formed inside lungs that had no right to be ready. The small mouth opened, bubbles streaming upward as if announcing life. And then the eyes fixed once more on the aliens outside. There was no fear in them, no confusion, only calm awareness. The younger doctor leaned forward, unable to resist. "It understands us," he whispered. The second doctor dragged him back, panic in his voice. "Stay away, it is not a child, it is a weapon. Don't let its size fool you." But the younger scientist shook his head. "No, this is not weaponry, this is survival in its purest form." The pod gave a final groan, glass straining under growing force. The child lifted both hands now, pressing against the surface. A glowing light pulsed from its skin, waves that made the entire room tremble. The lead doctor staggered as the chamber doors rattled. Even the walls seemed to bend under the strange energy. And then came the sound, a high-pitched crack followed by silence. A single piece of glass broke free, falling into the liquid. The child pushed its hand through the gap. Tiny, fragile, yet glowing with strength that chilled the doctors to their bones. Drops of blue liquid slid down its arm as it reached into open air for the first time. The younger doctor's breath caught in his throat. "It should not be possible," he whispered, his eyes wide with both terror and awe. The lead doctor forced himself to step forward, shouting, "Seal the breach, do it now." But the machines were dead, powerless against the life they had tried to measure. The child pulled harder, the crack widening with each movement. The glass gave way with a sharp shattering sound. Blue liquid spilled across the floor, glowing faintly as it spread like fire. In the center of it stood the child, small, human, yet different. Its skin shimmered faintly in the light, its breathing strong and steady. The three aliens stood frozen, staring at the impossible. The lead doctor whispered again, repeating the same words like a curse. It should not be awake. It should not be alive yet. But the truth stood in front of them, watching, learning, growing with every second. The child tilted its head, eyes glowing faintly. It took its first step, unsteady but sure, leaving glowing footprints on the wet floor. The chamber filled with silence, broken only by the soft sound of those steps. The child walked toward the scientists. Not stumbling, not afraid, it stopped only a few steps away, looking up at them with calm, unblinking eyes. And for the first time in their long lives, the alien doctors felt something deeper than fear. They felt small, they felt weak, they felt like prey. The child stood dripping with blue liquid, its small body glowing faintly in the dim chamber. Every step it took left shimmering footprints across the floor. Fading slowly like dying stars, the alien doctors dared not move, their breaths shallow, their hearts pounding. The lead doctor forced his voice to steady, though it shook with fear. "Scan it again," he ordered. "Find out what it is doing to us." The younger doctor hurried to the last working device, his long fingers tapping quickly. The scanner hummed weakly, its light brushing across the child's form. Data began to appear, chaotic, unreadable, like a storm of numbers colliding. The younger doctor's eyes widened as he tried to make sense of it. "This is not growth," he whispered. "It is rewriting itself every second." The second doctor leaned closer, his face pale. "Rewriting?" he asked, voice trembling. Yes, the younger replied. Its cells do not just adapt. They change completely and then change again, becoming stronger with every cycle. He pointed at the screen where glowing waves replaced normal readings. This is not a single body. This is evolution happening in real time. The lead doctor's throat went dry, his voice barely a whisper. Evolution at this speed should not be possible. The younger doctor looked back at him, fear mixing with awe. It is not just possible. It is natural for them. This is what humans are. The words struck the room like a blade. For a long moment, silence hung heavy, broken only by the soft steps of the child. It walked calmly around the chamber, touching the machines, the walls, as if studying everything it saw. Each touch left faint flickers of light as though it was tasting the world and reshaping it at the same time. The second doctor clenched his fists, his voice sharp with panic. Then humanity is not weak at all, he said. All this time we believed them fragile, breakable, but in truth they are something else entirely. He stepped back as if the child's very presence threatened him. They are survivors beyond anything we have known. The lead doctor remembered the old wars. The human battles that stretched on when others had surrendered, soldiers who bled but stood again, who lost worlds but rebuilt them. He had thought it was chance, stubbornness, a trick of their culture. Now he saw the truth. Biology itself had written survival into their very core. The child before him was proof, undeniable and terrifying. The younger doctor's voice grew softer, almost reverent. Every test we tried to harm it only made it stronger, he said. Our fire became its breath, our poison became its food. Even radiation became its shield. He turned toward the lead doctor, his eyes wide. Do you not see? Humanity was never meant to be conquered, they were meant to endure. The second doctor shook his head violently, fear gripping him tighter. If that is true, then every war we fought against them was a mistake, he hissed. Every victory was temporary. Every defeat only made them stronger, and now we hold a living key to their secret. His eyes darted to the child, who now stood calmly at the center of the room, watching them all in silence. The lead doctor felt sweat gather along his skin. He could not deny the truth. Humanity was not a weakness to exploit, but a storm waiting to rise, and if this child grew to adulthood, what force could ever contain it? What force could ever defeat a species that turned every wound into strength? The chamber lights flickered again as though the ship itself responded to the child's presence. Its heartbeat echoed in the walls, in the machines, in their very bones. It was no longer just a subject, it was a presence, a living force. The younger doctor whispered the thought none of them wanted to admit. Perhaps this is why humans always frightened us. Even when we pretended they did not, the second doctor snarled, his voice breaking. Then destroy it before it learns more, he shouted. But his words sounded weak, powerless in the shadow of the glowing figure, for in his heart, he knew the truth. Destroying it would not be simple. Perhaps it could not be destroyed at all. The child tilted its head. As if understanding every word, its eyes glowed brighter, calm yet unyielding. It took another step, and the floor beneath its foot pulsed with energy. The lead doctor felt a chill crawl through him. This was not just a human child, this was humanity itself. Condensed, alive, unstoppable, he whispered the truth aloud, unable to hold it back. This is their secret, he said. Not their weapons, not their machines, not their armies. His eyes locked on the glowing figure before him. Their secret is that they are unbroken. They're the species that grows when all others fall. The younger doctor nodded slowly, his voice filled with awe. And now we are watching it with our own eyes. The second doctor turned away, fear etched deep in his face. Then we are already doomed, he muttered, and in the silence that followed, the child smiled faintly as though it understood. The council chamber was filled again, but this time the air carried the weight of panic. The alien leaders sat stiff in their high chairs, their faces pale, their voices sharp. The three doctors stood in the center, their report glowing above the table as a floating screen. On that screen was the human child, alive, awake, and growing faster than any prediction. The lead doctor spoke first, his voice heavy. It cannot be stopped with medicine, it cannot be slowed with poison. It cannot be killed by heat or radiation. He paused, his eyes scanning the elders. Every attempt to weaken it has made it stronger. Every danger has become food for its growth. A shiver passed through the chamber. Unease spreading like disease. One elder slammed his hand on the table. "Then destroy it now," he commanded, his voice loud, "before it learns more, before it becomes more than we can handle." But another elder shook her head, her eyes narrow with fear. "You forget what happened in the last war," she said. "Do you not remember how humans fought even when broken? How they rose again after defeat? This child is proof it was never luck, it was never chance." The chamber fell into whispers, memories stirring of bloody battles fought on distant worlds. Soldiers who marched through fire, pilots who fought with failing ships, captains who never surrendered. The youngest counselor spoke, his voice thin. Humans were always underestimated, always dismissed as fragile, but what if they are more? What if we are the fragile ones? The lead doctor nodded slowly, his voice low. "The child shows us what humanity truly is," he said. "They adapt, they endure, they grow, no matter what stands in their way." He looked down at his trembling hands. If one child can do this in a single chamber, what would an entire species do if pushed to its limit? The second doctor stepped forward, his anger barely hiding his fear. "Then the answer is clear," he said sharply. "We must end them, all of them, before they spread beyond our control." But the younger doctor interrupted, his eyes wide with both awe and warning. "No," he said firmly, "do you not understand? We tried already and we failed. Every war we fought against them only made them harder to kill. This child proves it. Destruction only makes them stronger." The room fell silent again, every leader staring at the image of the child. It stood calmly in the pod chamber, glowing faintly, watching, waiting. Its eyes seemed too knowing, too calm. As if it could hear their very words, the silence stretched, heavy with the truth none of them wanted to face. Finally, one elder whispered what everyone feared to admit. "Perhaps we are not looking at a threat to be destroyed. Perhaps we are looking at the future rulers of this galaxy." The words struck the chamber like thunder. The others stirred, anger and fear clashing in their voices. "Impossible, we are the oldest empire, we have ruled for thousands of years," one shouted. "No empire lasts forever," another replied coldly. "And humanity is rising while we are already afraid." The youngest counselor leaned forward, his voice soft but clear. "This child is not just an accident. It is a warning," he said. "A warning that humanity is more than prey, more than a minor race. They are something that should not exist, and yet they do." His words spread across the chamber, making every elder shift uneasily. The truth was heavy. If one child could shake their empire, what would billions do? The lead doctor's eyes lowered as he whispered, "We can kill one, we can kill 1,000, but we cannot kill the idea of them." He lifted his head, his face pale with dread. "And this child proves that idea cannot be erased. Not with force, not with fear." The council grew restless, torn between action and terror. Some demanded war, others demanded retreat, but none offered peace. Every word spoken only fed the fire of fear burning brighter in their hearts. Because deep down they all knew the truth. Humanity could not be stopped. The more they tried, the stronger it would rise. Back in the chamber, far away from the council, the child pressed its hand against the glass again. The crack grew deeper, glowing with blue light. The guard stationed nearby watched in silence. Their hands shaking around their weapons, one whispered softly, almost to himself, "It should not be growing." But the child only blinked, its glowing eyes calm, as though it already knew what they feared most. It was not just growing for itself, it was growing for all of humanity. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of failing machines. The pod's cracked glass still glowed faintly, glowing lines spreading like veins of light. The human child stood inside calm and steady, its small chest rising with slow breaths. The guards outside watched with fear in their eyes, their weapons shaking in their hands. The lead doctor stepped closer, his voice breaking. "It should not have survived this long," he whispered. The younger doctor shook his head, his eyes wide with awe. "No," he said softly. "It should not even be alive at all, and yet it is standing. Stronger than us all." The child tilted its head, its glowing eyes locking on the figures around it. It pressed its hand against the cracked glass, and the lights flickered once again. The second doctor hissed, pulling back in fear. "It is not just alive, it is learning. It is listening to us." His voice trembled, the truth too heavy to deny. The child's lips moved, slow and uncertain. The doctors leaned forward, their hearts pounding. And then the sound came, soft but clear. "You should not have touched me," the child said. Its voice was small, but the words carried across the chamber like thunder. The younger doctor fell back, his mouth wide open. It spoke, he gasped. It learned our language already. The lead doctor's skin turned pale, his body stiff with horror. This is not possible, he muttered. Speech requires time, memory, guidance. It cannot simply. No, but the child had spoken, and it was not finished. Its glowing eyes flickered brighter. Its voice stronger this time. You tried to change me, it said. Each word slow, each word heavy. But you cannot change what I am. The chamber shook lightly, dust falling from the ceiling. The guards shouted and raised their weapons, but none dared fire. The lead doctor slammed his hand against the console. Shut it down, seal the chamber, he cried. But the machines were already dead, powerless before the strange energy radiating from the child. The child raised its hands, touching the cracked surface again. The glass bent inward, groaning as if under invisible pressure. The younger doctor whispered in disbelief, It is not using strength, it is bending energy itself. The ship cannot contain it. The second doctor turned to the council feed still glowing above them. Do you see this? He shouted to the elders. This is what we feared. Humanity is not prey, they are predators, their very children defy us. The elders on the screen watched in silence, their faces grim and pale. For once, no one argued, no one denied. The child's voice came again, louder now. You fear me, it said, but you should fear all of us. The words struck the chamber like fire. The guards stepped back, their courage draining away. Even the lead doctor lowered his head, unable to face the glowing eyes that burned with unnatural calm. The lights above flickered, then went dark for a moment. The chamber was filled with only silence and the soft blue glow of the child. Then alarms wailed across the ship, systems collapsing one by one. It was as though the child's heartbeat was rewriting the rhythm of the entire vessel. The younger doctor clutched his chest, feeling each thump echo inside his own bones. It is sinking with us, he gasped. Our bodies are machines, all tied to its pulse. The lead doctor shook his head in despair. This is not a child, he whispered. This is the future of its species. And we cannot stop it. The child stepped forward again, the crack spreading wider with each movement. Blue liquid spilled out in glowing streams, running like rivers across the floor. The guards stumbled back, slipping, their eyes wide with panic. The child pushed harder, and with a shattering sound, the glass gave way completely. It stepped free, glowing in the dim light. Standing tall despite its small size, the doctors froze, unable to move. The child's eyes locked on them, glowing brighter than before. You cannot hold us, it said calmly. You cannot break us, you cannot end us. Because we always grow. The chamber shook violently, the ship's walls groaning in pain. Systems sparked and collapsed. Lights bursting into darkness, the council feed vanished. The elders cut off from the scene. All that remained was the glowing child, standing unafraid in the storm it had created. The lead doctor whispered the words again, his voice weak, broken. It should not be growing, he said, trembling. But the truth stood in front of him, alive, aware, and unstoppable, and in its faint smile, the aliens saw the one thing they feared most. They saw humanity, unyielding, eternal, and already beyond their reach.